Oh, hi, and welcome to my shop on April 7th. Another day of not too bad outside. It's going to start sunny, but by lunch, rain is going to come, and then I don't think it's ever going to leave. That's what the weather forecast looks like. Rain forever after that. So, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to concentrate on the record player and investigate it a little bit. Try to understand why it is so noisy. It sounds like a train coming down the tracks when it operates. I'm not sure I can do anything about that, but we'll look into it and just see if there isn't something rattling that I can de-rattle. It does not have the needle in it. The needle is still off to the side, and that's a good idea so I don't damage it while I'm doing other things. But mainly I'll be looking at lubricating this guy, and underneath in particular. But why don't we start with the rattle? We'll take a look, we'll take a listen to what this sounds like when it's operating. I just want to make sure everything is safe over here. Once the whole amp is going to come on. Okay. Okay. Ready? There we go. There it goes. Well, it doesn't sound super noisy. Of course, I don't have a platter on it, and the platter is really what's making the noise, I think. But let's just investigate what's making noise in here. I'm going to pull the intermediate wheel away. A little surprising that's noisy. That's just the motor running. The sound is odd. It seems to be slowing down. Well, maybe some simple lubrication will stop it. You know what? There's a disc here, and there's a finger right here. That's going to lift that disc up and down, and that's what's going to do the speed changing. Let's fool around with the speed here. Yeah, no, that's not what's causing the rattle. It seems to have quieted down. No, those fingers are not touching. So when you listen to the sound, you can hear it pulsing. You can figure out what it is that's making the sound just by something rotating once around during the pulse. I mean, clearly you can hear this is making a sound. Is it loose on the shaft? It is. It's a little bit loose on the shaft. Quite a bit this way. How can that be different? A little bit of lubrication might help that. Okay, some lubrication. A little bit of very light oil. Just a few very small drops going in there. Didn't seem to do much, did it? I apply a little more pressure on the motor. That's the motor itself. Okay. something playing back and forth in there just a wee bit. I think the whole shaft is moving like this. The play could easily be right in the motor bearing. Why don't we get a close look at things here before we start sticking oil and stuff into it. Okay, here's a look at the intermediate wheel, the shaft of the motor, the gears, I guess you can call this the gears, and the finger, that's this part here, that's lifting this plate up and down. The plate settles into a location, the speed plate, based on the fingers. Let me turn it, let me put it down here. See it. Based on the little indentations on this, there you can see them on the those squiggly parts. On the top of this you can see some rubber debris, and that's rubber coming off the wheel here. When you look at the wheel, you can see the surface is scratched up quite a bit. Exactly why it looks like that, I'm not sure. Maybe during speed changes, as it goes over top of this edge here, maybe that does it. Now you can see the center. There's a center spindle. This is right on the motor, this piece, and then that's the slow speed, 33, where it's set now. And you can see the next speed. So you can see how the wheel is driven away during the speed change. So you can do this without operating. So then what I was going to say about the scratches on the face of the wheel, it can't be really true. Now the spring that's retracting this isn't all that strong. Not a lot of pressure. I mean, you don't want to put a lot of pressure on the spindle, or you're going to be driving the shaft of the motor to one side. It's going to wear out kind of funny. Now I could feel some play in this. Where did it go? Down there. Like a tiny amount here. Oh, I can feel it now. What is that? Let me move the shaft of the motor. So the motor's mounted in, probably mounted in some kind of rubber mounts or something that flexes a bit. So some of the movement you see when I do this is just that. It's not a big deal. What you can't see is what I can feel. I don't know if I feel it. Yeah, I can't say I can feel any kind of play in there. Nevertheless, put a little bit of lubrication right down at the bottom there. Let me turn the motor by hand. See some old lubrication. That looks like grease that was probably under this sliding part. It's pretty dry now. Here you can see there. You can see the play there. Surely to goodness that's going to make a little bit of noise. They have to arrange it so these fingers come out, move the wheel, and then retract so they're not in contact with the spinning part. That's all pretty noisy. If it's loose at all, a little bit of motor vibration you can get into this. It'll give you some noises. Oh. Okay, that's my alarm going off. I have to go and attend to something. Okay, We'll just carry on studying this carefully. Okay, so how dried up is that grease? It's gone hard, I think. It's on the outside anyway, doesn't mean much. Well, we can re-grease this pretty easily, I think. We just, well, wait a minute. Wait a cotton pick a minute. Oh, I'm sorry. So sorry for having just said that. Trying to learn to not say something my mother said 50 times a day. All, thoughtlessly. And I'm afraid I still tend to say that rather crummy phrase. Okay, if I lubricate this on the shaft, the lubrication's going to come up on here and start affecting the wheel. I don't want to do that. So, lubrication. What lubrication am I seeing under there then? I'd have to guess it's what's with my light. That's my camera automatic adjustment going a little crazy here. It's grease, and just you wouldn't put grease in the motor bearing. Maybe they put grease on those zigzaggy pieces, and so that would put grease up in here. I don't think it's very important. Okay, let's see if we can get some oil down into the motor. What happened here? That's a tiny amount. That's probably enough. Spin the motor a little bit. I don't think there's much else I can do up here than that. Let's spin it again. This time we'll have the camera on it. Here we go. That's pretty quiet. Is that all it took? A little bit of oil down there? Huh. Maybe so. I wouldn't have thought that. Okay, that's great. Now, what else can we do on the top of this record player? From the top. Turn it off again. So it has a E-clip over here, which I personally think are C-clips myself. It has this rather unusual shape here, and that looks like a threaded screw coming through. This different color metal is all one piece of something. Some heavy screws here. There's this unusual looking thing here, which looks more like an adjustment than anything. A couple screws holding the motor in place. Peanut, for crying out loud, I just let you in. You just came in. There we go. What is it? Yeah? You want to go outside? Show me where you want to go. You want to go there? Where do you want to go? No. Yeah, I hear ya. Oh my gosh, he's not going to stop again. Okay, I gotta let him go back outside. Okay. Never alone in this house. Yeah, that's right. I'll take him out. Well, I don't think any of those screws are of any interest. Maybe this one. When we look underneath, we'll figure out what that is. But I see another area that certainly needs some lubrication here. So let's take a look at that. This bar, you can see the old lubrication on it. Let's check it out. So, still not bad. That's not terrible. You can see the area that gets worked is pretty clean of lubrication. Okay, so this old stuff's probably pretty dirty. This is a pretty rough surface anyway. And what's it doing? Watch when I change the speed. So that's also controlling the, I would say this is a rough height selector. And then the refined one is this funny shaped piece of metal there. Wire. Okay, well we can throw a little more lubrication on here and that'll make things go a little smoother. What I use is a synthetic grease. That should be grease, of course. I'll throw a little on. I'm not going to bother cleaning the old stuff off because it's still pretty greasy. And this will kind of wake it up anyway. Should have used my big fat finger. That's lots. Okay, we'll operate it a little bit. I think that's really all we can do up here. I'm not sure I want to bother. There's no need to lubricate any of this kind of stuff here. These pieces here. Don't think you want to put, well, a little bit I put in there will be okay. Good. Okay, now we got to take a look underneath where the real action is. I did almost forget something. That's the overarm here, and this situation here. So there's some old lubrication in there, not much. But I think what I want to do is put a little WD-40 right in there. By the way, this record player has an interesting design. It seems to be in reverse of more modern record players, where typically you find the overarm pivot on the back of the record player, usually over here. But having it at the front makes a lot of sense because this is the area you're supposed to grab when you move it. But when this is around the back, the tendency is for people to try to lift it here. This is a bad thing to do. You need to lift it back here. So in this record player, this is right up front. Good. Okay, now I think I got everything in the front. No, there's nothing to lubricate with the tone arm. Let's flip it over and see what's under there. Okay, let's start by looking at the kind of the electrical side of things. So One of these wires is the signal wire, shielded signal wire. The other one is a ground wire we discovered. So you can see the ground wire terminal is screwed right to the deck there, and then you can see a shield wire here, and then a insulated wire there. Down below is the wire coming back from the tone arm and the cartridge. The shield going to the middle, and the signal wire going over here. Everything looks fine. Okay, now some more electrical stuff to look at. We look at the motor. So here's obviously the two motor wires. These are the 3 wires coming from the amplifier and the actual outlet. And these are squeezed down and tight. Everything looks just fine. Now, somewhere there must be a... oh yeah, the on-off switch is done manually at the top. So that switch is right here. Now I'm wiggling the on-off, and you can see the arm it's moving, this arm. You can see some mechanism. Well, you can't, I can't. There. You can see a mechanism. In here, there's a spring on it. Okay, now this is power is turned off, so here's the switch right here. And can you see the brass finger sticking out? Or claw. Yeah, claw is a better word. Right in here, there's a claw. So we turn the switch. Okay, this not only turns it on and off by operating the switch here, it also triggers the mechanism. So we can see that happening to some degree here. In this part right here. This is the exactly how it does it. I'm not completely sure. Got some imaginary thoughts. They're all a little bit similar. Okay, just looking generally for lubrication. Okay, this is the actual tone arm moving. This part. It's on a point pivot up in here. Doesn't appear to be any adjustments. This is all covered with dried up oil or grease. This piece here is a ramp. There's a ramp end on it. I don't know if you can, yeah, you can kind of get an idea that it's there in the camera. Comes over and catches this. This linkage, you can see it going all the way down to here. So this is going to be responsible, this part right here, for the trigger operation either at the end of the record or when you turn the control up here to reject. Removing this, which will be triggering a gear meshing up in here. You see this big gear? Almost certainly this big gear has some teeth missing right here right now. It's in the stop position or the rest position, and I can see up in there that this part of this is missing. It's actually cut away. So when this gear engages, and what's it engaging with? Okay, so this is the platter. It's engaging with these teeth here. And on here is a kicker. That's this part sticking out here. It goes around. There's no other part like it, just right there. So once around, every time the platter turns around, this thing sweeps by something. Now it either sweeps by it or it begins to hit it. And what's it hitting? It's hitting something to do with this piece here. At some point, because of the way things work, that hitting will become a bit of a grab, and it will cause this to rotate a distance and bring the blank spot, it'll move the blank spot of this gear plate enough that the gears themselves will engage with the platter, the big platter gear. Now start the whole mechanism going. Let's take a look inside there. So look carefully. I'll move the big plate. You'll see it. There's the plate. You can see the missing teeth right there. So you can picture when the platter's in place, its gear is just spinning around there doing nothing. But under the right circumstances, this plate will get kicked forward a little bit, like that. And then the gears will engage, and the whole thing will start operating. And that will cause all the mechanisms to lift the arm, move the arm, drop the arm to occur. That's based on these pieces down here. This piece here, you can see the spring on it. You don't normally put a spring unless something's going to move. So if I turn this wheel a bit, you can see what's happening. That piece is moving. See, it's pushing against that. That's trying to lift the tone arm. That's a plunger. It's pushing down because we're upside down, but it's actually pushing up on the tone arm. That'll lift it. So that's the lifting of the tone arm there. This area under here needs to be lubricated quite well because it's just skidding over it. And of course, everything's upside down, so the tone arm isn't putting any weight onto this, just the spring. But I'm feeling this. It's not terrible. It doesn't feel like it sticks anywhere in particular. So even though this is pretty old, the lubrication they used has stood up to time. There's many other record players where the lubrication they use just completely turns into glue, basically. Dries right up. Whatever they used on this, or this has been in for maintenance at some point in its life. And so it's all been renewed. It's actually quite surprising how good it is. And just looking at the different pieces and how they move. Trying to spot everything that might. I think this should have grease on it, shouldn't it? Now that's the tone arm trying to move underneath. It's hanging down and it's laying on my bench. I probably bumped into something. Well, I think this part here is really under lubricated. This shaft is attached to the wheel I'm turning. And so as the wheel turns, the shaft moves and it's pulling this in the slot. The slot has particular shapes in it. I don't think I want to turn it any further than that. So I think this needs lubrication. I don't see much previously there, surprisingly enough. The one piece that you should not lubricate was that bar that we were moving earlier. This bar here. This piece. It's jammed a little bit now because of what I've been doing, but this piece is, see how loose it is? It's meant to be loose like that. Because at some point it's being moved by the tone arm itself. And what's moving the tone arm? The needle dragging in the groove. There's not a lot of power there. So if you put lubrication on this piece, it'll eventually get sticky and cause problems. Better to just have it hanging free the way they've done it. It's very, very common in record players for that part. Okay, so right now we get right up in here. This is all terrible looking. Well, terrible from one point of view. It looks ugly, but from another point of view, it certainly is oiled up. Now, this is going to operate to push the record dropping function here. Looks like this arm will be contacted by this edge in the slot if you move the wheel far enough, and that's where it does the dropping. So this would be operating the spindle mechanism to drop a record. Why so heavily lubricated everywhere? It could be lubrication's been shoved down from above, and it's just worked its way down into here. You could see your average person wanting to lubricate the center of the platter because it's an obvious place. The forces are such that the lubrication there, although yes, you should have it lubricated, there's an awful lot of power right on that platter, because the platter's a gigantic gear as far as this mechanism is concerned. It's a great big gear between the intermediate wheel that up above, that's running on the inside of the rim, and that center gear I showed you on the shaft of the platter. Has a huge gear ratio there, so a lot of power. So poor lubrication is not going to stop it. Why does this piece come back? Why doesn't it just stay? So there must be a spring somewhere dealing with that. Okay, I think I need to lubricate that. I don't think so. Okay, I think I got the story here. I think I have the bulk of the story straight. It's really just where to put lubrication and not. So we're going to put a little bit along these edges here. Okay, I'm going to put some on here. When you look at one of these record players, sometimes the old grease is on there. When you look at it, what you're seeing are the fingerprints of the person who did what I did, what I'm doing right now, what they did maybe 60 years ago. There's lots of different lubrication up in here, but you know, it all feels very dry. Crystalline, feels kind of crystalline. I can see specks on my finger. I want to get some grease up under here. My finger's far too fat of an instrument for that. Maybe, like none of those, like those surfaces are just out there. They're not rubbing up against anything, are they? Actually, let me turn the tone arm here. Actually, you can see some skid marks in here from a contact. This stuff's all dried up, but what's up here doesn't do anything. This is suspicious right in here, this shape. I don't see what it's doing, but it sure is suspicious that it's doing something similar to this ramp here. So I've looked at lots of record players and sort of have a general idea, but everyone's a little different. There's some standard designs like BSRs. They're all very, very similar. But each individual record player has its differences. This is a very old record player. And I'm sure there were patents on some of these mechanisms, so other companies could benefit from discoveries of how to make these as simple as possible, or different techniques. Like if you think about the slot up here and how it uses, this slot, this arm. Maybe that's some kind of patented thing that somebody came up with. I don't know. Don't think the patent would matter much anymore. I'm just going to put a little bit of WD-40 in there. WD-40 is a combination of solvents and oil. I guess gas when you first blow it out. Okay. What else would require some lubrication? What about the teeth themselves? They sure don't look lubricated, but again, if you look at under here, so this is all goobed up because of oil coming down from above. I'm pretty sure that's what's happened. So there's enough oil getting on these gears here to do the trick. What's this little piece? Got a bit of a slot here, and it looks like old lubrication on it here. Okay. Then we have. So here's the. What I'm doing now is I'm moving the. Can you see it way in the back here? This is the overarm, the part that rests on top of the records that are stacked on the spindle to give them stability. But its secret duty is to tell the record player when there's no more records. So when it's normally operating like this. You put more records, you get more and more records, and as they play, this moves. When the last record goes, this thing will drop. Not a lot, eh? It's got a spring here. I think this would be a more solid connection. It has a very thin rod, which you can barely see it on the camera there. Very thin rod right here, more like a wire going through a little hole there. Grabber or support guide, I guess would be the right word, coming to this piece. Oh, how do you like that? I made this thing move in here. Let me get the other camera going. Take a close look at that part of the mechanism. So the engineers didn't think these things up cold. They had an earlier model. They had gotten certain things figured out. And probably along the way they got new ideas. Then they apply the new ideas on the next version of the machine. And they slowly build it up until they have a wondrous record player like this one. Okay, let me move the lever back here. So I'm pretending to be the overarm moving. This is curious how they've done this. Just a plate on top. Maybe at some point they discovered that this thing sticking out wiggles too much. They wanted to restrict its wiggle, because it's coming from way underneath there. Now, if we're going to lubricate something, what would it be? You can see lots of parts moving. If you look down past that spring, there. It all feels pretty good. There's the shaft. It's another plate, like this plate. There's another plate right here. This piece feels pretty loosey-goosey here. I don't think it's going through a tight shaft. Probably what I just do. Playing the next record down. Seems okay to me. Who's dingling? Who's the dingle bells? It's my other cat. Yeah, we're looking at you. We put collars on our cats when they go out with little bells on them, and the idea is the bell helps us know where the cats are, but it also scares away or warns birds or other animals that they're coming. These cats are really good. She's not itchy. She's ringing the bell. And she's looking at me. Oh no, she's coming. She's coming. You gonna say something? Hey, distraction. Hey, distraction. There's nothing in there. Just keep on your way here. She's just generally curious. So she's been out for quite a bit already today, so she's probably happy to be in for a bit. Ringing her bell. Okay. So I think this is generally okay. We have the motor now to deal with. Take off this lower bearing. So everything's upside down. So if you turn it the other way, this rotor is sitting on top of a bearing inside this cup. And this is very important to lubricate. So we're going to take this off. That's all the dirt in there. Sometimes these are going down into a nut, and the nut can be very hard to replace. And see, as I turn the screw, it comes up. That means it's going down into a threaded sleeve of some sort. So it would be easy to put back. Wow, that was pretty in there. So you want these pretty tight because the motor's shaking. Shake everything loose. In fact, there's a locking washer on here. Maybe the same thing on the other side. Screws, are they identical? Yep. Sometimes one's long, one's short. Take that off. Was stuck. I don't think it was stuck on the motor. It was stuck on here. So this is called a self-adjusting bearing. Let's look at it with the close-up camera here. Here it is. Couldn't find the camera. Looks pretty dry. The actual bearing surface is the very top of this. See how they rounded the top here? Now, a lot of these are much more rounded. And the odd one, they have actually a ball bearing. Just a single ball sitting on top of this. Now, is that the case? Is there a ball bearing inside there? Because what can happen here is you don't realize there's a little ball bearing laying in there. It doesn't look like it at all. And you turn this over, the ball bearing will fall out and roll away, and you've lost it. This looks like it's just the shaft itself and the fact that they shaped it a little bit to get it down to a point contact. So we want that cleaned up really nice, and then it looks to me like the point contact has worn down into a more or less a flat surface right on the top there. And this makes lubrication even more important. And the motor is spinning very fast. That tells you something about gearing ratio and power in the motor. The power is not all that great in these motors. You say, well, what the heck is this? This part and over here. Well, this helps the motor start. When you first turn it on, without these copper pieces wound through the motor frame, I'm not sure what else to call it, the motor might not start turning. Another thing is, you see these drill spots here? These have been drilled in order to balance this. Make it balanced. And also exactly where the right spot is now. I'm spinning it, and it's not exactly spinning freely. It's like a lot of dirt up in there. Because I have it upside down now, I'm driving the dirt. The dirt's falling in a new direction, falling back up inside it. I guess if you got enough of it in there and you let this sit long enough, it would glue itself, and then it doesn't have the power to overcome it. That's not the case with this motor, though. Oh, feels good now. So we need to clean the top off, which I'm kind of doing with my finger. Yeah, I'm sure it's worn flat up there. So lubrication, very important on this one. Now the idea of the self-adjusting bearing. Let me just exercise it here. So basically, when you put the motor together, like I'm going to do shortly, this piece will rotate. See, it can kind of rotate, and it will find its happy spot where it won't be much contact between the sides of the shaft and in here. And we'll just find its own happy spot. Now it's not stuck because I can move it quite easily. And when we go to lubricate this, it'll end up even a little bit looser. And then we look inside. Get my flashlight here. Oh, yuck. So there's a whole pile of dried up stuff in there. We're going to want to dissolve that and get that out for sure. So we can dissolve it with a couple of different things. Alcohol is one of my favorite things to use for stuff like this. So we're going to get some, and we're going to drip it down inside there. Using a stick to bring the alcohol over. Got it all over the place. That's okay. The alcohol will dry away, evaporate away. Now I want to clean inside there, so I will take a brush I don't care about. I'm in the dollar store. I buy cheap paintbrushes. You know, children's paintbrushes. You find them in the record player maintenance aisle. Vintage record player maintenance aisle. Looks a lot cleaner. I'm actually going to dip this brush. Hey, there's an idea. The brush and the paint, the alcohol. And really flood it. Okay, let's bring another brush in to kind absorb some of that alcohol. Let's take a look inside now, see what it looks like. Doesn't look particularly wondrous, does it? Okay, so we'll try another thing. We'll plunge it with some paper towel here. So just get a little bit of paper towel. I'm not sure if I can get away with this. We'll see. Just grabbing it with a pair of pliers. And shove it in. I think there's too much here. Something out of it. That's looking better. Now I think some of the grease may actually turn into crystals. I don't know. Maybe those crystals will never dissolve again. And so just sticking lubrication in isn't going to do the trick. That looks good now. You can see the bottom is polished where the metal faces have been up against each other. We certainly want to lubricate this, and grease is the way to go. Where's my greasing stick? Gonna do it. This might quiet things down a little bit. That's all there is to that. The top shaft is cleaned up. Pretty good. Just a wee bit more cleaning and then we're golden. And I take a little bit of that alcohol. You can really see the surface on it. Now either I'm mistaken and that's supposed to look like that, or it's actually just worn down flat. Hard to say. Hard to say. In any case, the lubrication's going to do the trick on that. Good. Okay, we'll put the bearing back on. As soon as I find it, here it is. You notice these are made to center the bearing properly. So you don't have to worry about it going wrong. Okay, there we are. Grab the screws, locking washers. So it looks like this particular motor is not in any kind of rubber mounts. Often there's a rubber mounting system between the motor, which is vibrating a little bit, and the rest of the record player to avoid to try to reduce the amount of motor hum that's going to get into the player. Well, that's one. You know, there's a whole system here: cartridge, speakers, amplifier. All of them have frequency response ranges. And a record player like this, there's no use having really low response anywhere. Cartridge. Okay, I'm tightening that up pretty good. Cartridge, speakers, because ultimately what you're going to reproduce is the sound of this motor and other things in the record player. So the rim drive record player is just automatically restricted in the amount of bass it can reproduce comfortably. So next level up, you get belt drive, record players, you get balanced tone arms. They're no longer just spring, they're very, very light. All those features are good enough to prevent a noise from getting into the cartridge. Rumble. And then you can have big speakers, big sound. So you can hear that bass drum. Okay, that's basically it for maintenance here, I think. No, maybe just a few more things. Can be just a touch of lubricant. Touch is absolutely right. Let's take a look at this piece. It's been hidden from view behind the motor here. So let me see if I can turn this around a bit. Okay, there's another whole mechanism here I didn't even look at. So this is the speed control. All kinds of dry metal on dry metal. All of it is loosey-goosey. I think a little bit of lubrication wouldn't hurt on there. Even a piece way back up in there. Yeah, turn it around, see it from a new angle. Okay, let me draw the bar out. Doesn't seem to have ever been any lubrication on it, but you put just a little bit. You know, it's surfaces skidding on surfaces. Okay, and then we'll just put a little bit on here. Maybe if I can get a little bit up in here. Okay, we'll work the control. This might make it much easier to turn this lever. Oh, it does. Sticky point there. Okay, still got this part back here. Oh, now you want to go out? That's my other cat's meow. Pretty different from Peanut. Okay, hang on just 1 second, cat. Very good. I think that's good. Okay, Shadow, hang on. I'm coming now. Okay, how about a mystery? So I found this tucked inside the record player where it had fallen, I'm sure. Fallen in, similar to the this little package here. Oh, okay, that's dropping the needle on the floor. This little package had fallen in. This thing had fallen in also. When I look at it, I thought it was one of these, but it's not. They're not the same thing. What the heck is this supposed to go on there? That's where it... So there's something missing here, and I've got something. So they kind of go together. Not really. The threads aren't matching. What is this? It's just a case of dropping things into the wrong place and they fell down inside the record player and were essentially lost. I don't know what that is. Okay, mystery remains. What about the piece that should be here? Good question. Okay, I'm going to flip it over and take another look at it. While I have it apart like this, I have a chance to clean it up in a way that can't be done unless it's all apart like this. So I'm going to do that, clean this up, and I think we're good to go otherwise. Good. Let me clean her up. Okay, well it's 8 o'clock in the evening now, and this is all on my bench after having been fully installed in the cabinet. And then, just kind of on a lark, I thought, hey, why don't I turn it on and see what happens? So I turned it on, and the motor doesn't turn in the record player. Amplifier comes on, motor won't turn. I fooled around with it for a bit, but in the end it had to all come out again and get on my bench. So here it is. I'm a little frustrated. I was really thinking I was done, and now I'm not. So let me just, and I'm hoping it's something really simple and stupid that I can get past and be happy. So the power to the motor, I'm just thinking here, because I can turn it on from here and the amplifier comes on, that means the power is getting all the way in and all the way back on the switch line to turn this on. That means power is getting all the way into the switch. From the switch, it should be going to the motor too. That kind of eliminates the switch as being a problem. I can't imagine they'd use a double pole switch. Not for something like this. So that really means the motor, and in the case of the motor, the motor could be blocked, but I tried my best to make sure it isn't. It doesn't seem to be blocked, but the torque on these motors is very, very low. If I flip it over to look at it, when it's upside down, the motor may not operate properly because the rotor will be out of position, so that might not be an accurate way. Maybe what I'll do is I'll set the camera up here on it and I'll watch it to make sure it's not turning. Okay, you can see the motor there. I'll put my hand in here and give the rotor a little push. Now it's not exactly, spinning after you turn it. I'd say it's sticking too much. Now I put grease in the lower bearing, thinking that might be a good idea because it's so worn. Maybe that wasn't the best idea. Wouldn't think that would stop it, but I'm going to have to turn it on and give it a little flick here and see if that gets it going. Okay, here we go. Power on here. And on. Oh, it's trying. There it goes. I'm going to let that run for a bit. Oh, what just happened there? Why so weak, little motor? So I think the noise before was rubbing in the speed control. The little fork in the spinning plate. I've got this set on 78, but it's not spinning 78 up here. Oh, smokes, how you like that? Stop the platter and stop the motor. This is on full power. The voltage is a little low. Oh my gosh, look at that. So that was 108 volts. This is 117. Oh, Is that what really happened the whole time? Oh my gosh. Well, let's try stopping it and starting it. Whoa, it stops pretty fast. Of course, what's happening is the bearing is warming up a little bit. I'll be loosening up some of the grease I put in there. I should have just put oil. It does start, and actually it's running really quiet. Much better than before. Well, what should I do? Put it back in the box? Maybe leave it out for a little bit. That's a good idea. I'll come in, I'll wait an hour, I'll come in and I'll turn it on again. That's a good idea. Whew. Close one. Okay, half an hour later, here we go. That's good. Okay, it's really late. It's 10 o'clock at night. Let's give it another test here. Here we go. Not the best sign. I think I'm going to let it run for a little while. Let's see if the mechanism will operate. That's a little odd. I can't put it into reject. Maybe the stand is in the way. What has happened here? Shavers. Should have turned off. play again. Why the inconsistent operation? Maybe it just had to go around a couple times. Put it up on 78. Try it all again. Well, it seems pretty consistent now. Let's just see how warm that motor got. It's pretty warm. Okay. I think I'm going to have to leave it on my bench overnight and try it in the morning when it's very cold and see what happens. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Well, it's now the next morning. It's now the 8th of April, and I'm going to turn this guy on cold, and we're going to see if that motor starts up on its own. My money is on the idea that it's not going to start. So it's going to be full voltage right from the start. Here we go. Okay, do I even have it turned on? It may not be on. Let's turn the switch here. And away it goes. Fantastic. Very good. So it probably just needed some run-in time. Oh my gosh, why is this so slow? I got it on 78, it's barely going. What's happening? Everything's so quiet too. Why so slow? It's 117 volts on the motor. Slow and steady. Let's try a speed change and see if that gets it happening here. It's like the motor's going half speed or something. Crying out loud. What did I do? Did I just stall the motor? Well, isn't that disappointing? Let me turn the power off. Okay, we'll turn it back on. It's trying. Try it again, it's off. Back on. Try it one more time. No torque left in the motor. What a time to find this out. No torque left in the motor. I have no idea what you can do about that, if anything. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. It just doesn't get any more disappointing than this. I've done all the work on it, and its heart won't beat. Well, I got to research this question about what to do about a motor like this. I don't know if there's anything that can be done.